Me is Queen Aset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. All right, somebody from our magical community asked me a question about cord cutting. She said, how do you cut the cords? Well, let's first talk about what cords are. A cord is the energy that comes from your body. So remember me talking about energy and the fact that we all have energy. We have energy inside of us and we have energy around us. The energy around us is known as the aura. So whenever you come across someone, our auras kind of overlap because it's like a big bubble around us, a big bubble of energy. So when you come across a person, if you pass them on the street or if you hug them or shake their hand, you energetically connect for a moment, whatever moment you're touching for or you're close to them for. You don't have to really be touching them as long as there's some kind of energetic way. For example, you can pick up on somebody's aura through the computer. That's how I do readings. I'm able to pick up on their energy and suck it right through the computer or through the telephone, any kind of medium that generates energy. So likewise, if I touch someone or walk past them or something, our energy touches each other. So this happens with all of us. We all have energy and we all do this all day. Now, most cords are not cords that last. They're like temporary cords. So if I go to the store and I buy a bottle of juice, I hand the cashier my money. Me and the cashier have a temporary cord that probably won't be very strong. If I see that cashier every day and we start to have a relationship, the cord will strengthen. With somebody like your child, you have the strongest cord. You see, especially if you have a relationship with them. But even if you don't, there's a very strong cord there. Your cord with your lovers is a pretty strong cord. So it's basically just the energy between the two of you. And some people have like multiple cords. There's more than one energy cord coming from them. It depends on how strong the connection really is. So if you have somebody who you are, for instance, a soulmate. Let's say you have a soulmate. I always tell people that soulmates are life lessons or life partners. Usually it's one or the other. If they're a life partner, you pretty much work everything out and you live your life together. If they're a life lesson, they come to teach you something and you teach them something. It's like a mutual exchange, and it's usually pretty painful because these are very intense and oftentimes very passionate relationships, and oftentimes you don't belong with this person because again, they're not your life partner, they're just a life lesson. Voldemort was my life lesson. He was a soulmate, but he was not to be. He was not to be my life partner. He was meant to be a life lesson. You know, very intense, very passionate relationship, very negative, very dysfunctional, and took me a long time to deal with. Actually, even though it was good, the stuff I had to deal with because of it was good, but it was difficult. So our cord was fat and thick. We had quite the cord, you know? So it depends on your relationship with somebody, how the cord is. If it's a little teeny one or if it's a big fat one. Now, what do you do about these cords? Well, with most people, you don't have to do anything because they kind of just dissolve on their own. You know, if the energy isn't strong, it just kind of goes, you know, energy can't be destroyed. So it just kind of shifts to something else, you know? So whatever that energy is between me and the milkman, if he moves to another neighborhood, that energy pretty much just dissipates into something else if that energy was not significant. So it's not really a big deal. But what about when it is a big deal? What about when it's somebody that you've been very close to and you have to separate from? What about then? What about your soulmate that was a life lesson that you need to get away from? You know, what about the maniac that you have feelings for that you now have to escape, basically? So if that happens and it's a friend or a lover, ex-lover, that kind of thing, then you have to do what we call cord cutting. So you're like, well, how do you cut an energetic cord? First of all, you can use meditation. This is the way I think most people do it. I'm going to teach y'all what I do, and I'm going to teach y'all what most people do. Most people do a meditation, a cord cutting meditation. And after this video, I'm going to link one underneath here so you can check it out. I have two of them saved on the computer. I'll give you guys both of them. I like both of them. I've used both of them. So you use the meditation to do an energetic cord cutting. In the meditation, you ask the angels, I believe it's both angels. Yeah, they're both one of them, Archangel Michael. I think they might both be Archangel Michael. But you ask the archangels to sever the cords, to sever the energy. Basically, you just do a meditation along with a prayer. You ask them to remove the energy. Now, I've come to find this is extremely helpful with most cords. But if it's a stubborn cord, you may need to repeat this process more than once. Likewise, if it's not coming apart, you've done this several times and it's still not working, you got to take it into more drastic measures. So you have two options. I always use the first one first, then I go for the second one. My first thing to do is cut the cords myself. So what I do is I cleanse myself physically, like take a shower. I go to the altar. I light frankincense and myrrh. And then I stand in front of the altar. I call upon Archangel Michael. I take my sword. I don't have a sword right now, so if I got to cut cords anytime soon, I'm going to be in trouble. I need a new sword. But all my ritual supplies are in storage. But one of them was a sword. And I would take my sword and I would cut energetically. And you know, just cut around myself, around my head, from my back. I would just cut the air all around me. Basically all around my aura. So I would cut and I would ask Michael, use your flaming sword and cut the cords for me. I would, of course, tell Michael what I was doing before I got started and explain. And of course, he already would know anyway, but I would set my intention by saying it and then cut the cords, energetically right all around myself. So here I am energetically cutting the cords with the help of Michael, and I'm using my sword and actually physically cutting the energy from around me with this sword. So I used to do both. And I would always use a sword that wasn't too sharp just in case I cut myself by accident. So mine is sharp, but not too sharp. So that's a basic cord cutting. Now, some of the times that particular cord cutting is not enough. You need more energy. So I would take a rope. I would do the same thing. I would cleanse myself. I would cleanse myself with the frankincense and myrrh, stand in front of the altar, invoke the goddess and the angels, tie the rope around my waist, and I would hold the other end or tie the other end to the altar. And I would take a knife that is not sharp, is not dull, it's like in the middle, and I would envision the cord between me and the other person, and I would cut the cord with the knife literally. And as I'm cutting it, now mind you, it's sharp, but it's not extremely sharp. So this is going to take a while. This is going to take what? Energy. And I use that energy and push that energy and push that energy, and I'm seeing the cord, I'm seeing the person, and I'm cutting and cutting and cutting, and then eventually it falls, right? And then the piece that falls, I take it, I pull it up, and you can use twine for this, you can use string, you can use yarn, it can be really anything, it could be rope, but you have to burn it after you're done. So I would really suggest the thing that's going to be easiest to burn. In my case, it was kind of like this yarn, basically yarn consistency. So I cut it and I picked it up off the floor, threw it in the cauldron, sprinkled some frankincense on top of it, sprinkled some sage on top of it, and lit it on fire. So the whole cord went up in flames. So that's how, that's another more extreme version of cord cutting. Now, if you still have a problem after that, if you still got something hanging on you after that, then you have to do what we call a banishing. A banishing is a whole different spell, but basically you call upon the heavenly bodies to banish this person's energy from you, especially if it's a person who's harmful. And there are thousands of banishing spells. Most people just write their own or get them from a spell book. And that's the other way. Now, generally, once you've done a banishing, and sometimes I've seen people have to repeat a banishing maybe twice, usually after that, the person don't bother you no more. That cord is cut. So that's how we do cord cutting. So for the young lady that asked the question, the last two methods that I gave you are pretty standard in paganism. You'll probably find those in your research, but that's how I personally have done them myself. Okay? I hope that helps. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and pass it on to somebody else who might be wondering about cutting some cords. Okay? All right, guys, if you would like to get a reading done, you can hit me up on my email. If you have a question for Ask an Aquarius, please email it to me. I'm also on social media in case you want to drop me a line. And I also will leave my PayPal in case you want to leave me a love donation. And I will leave my Amazon wish list in case you would like to leave me a gift. Thank you for being here. Sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.